welcome back to yet another video. My name is Belinda. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to hit that bell notification and subscribe button so you're notified every time I post something new. So today's video is actually my infertility story. I have a ton of people always asking me my story and what I went through, so I just figured I'd do a little story time with y'all and fill y'all in on everything I've gone through. April is Infertility Awareness Month, and March was actually Endometriosis Awareness Month, which is why I struggled with infertility. So I figured that right now would be a perfect time to go ahead and fill y'all in on everything that I went through, all my struggles, all my battles, and kind of just give y'all a backstory on my life. So to begin with, Andy and I got married in 2008. And if y'all saw my video with Lexi, y'all know that she came and lived with us shortly thereafter. So I kind of just figured, yes, I was pretty young at that time. I was 19, but I was like, you know what? Might as well start trying to have my own biological children at that time so that they could grow up close in age with Lexi. Well, that didn't happen. I got off of birth control pretty thereafter we got married, maybe within 6 months afterwards. I was just like, you know what, there's no point in it. I'm just gonna get off of it. If I get pregnant, if I have any children, it's fine. I'm married, I'm already raising Lexi, no big deal. Well, nothing ever happened. I probably was off of birth control for about 1.5 years before I was like, okay, well, you know, I hear people that are on birth control, they get off of it, they get pregnant right away. And then I hear those stories of like, you need to detox your body, so that it might take a little bit longer. So I kind of figured that this was my situation, that my body was just needing to detox. And I just kind of gave it about 1 year, 1.5 years. Finally, I decided that I was gonna go and see my OBGYN and ask him like, hey, is this normal? So I started seeing a doctor in Midland. He was my OBGYN for years, and he was actually the one that diagnosed me with endometriosis. But whenever I did start going to see him, at first we were just like, okay, well, your body just needs to detox. Just give it some time. So that's what I did. And then after a while, I was like, you know what? My body should already be detoxed. Like, why is nothing happening? So he started suggesting for us to try timed intercourse, which it's horrible. There's nothing worse than having a time when you're gonna be intimate with your spouse, because you're literally looking at a calendar on your phone trying to figure out when you're ovulating, and there's nothing romantic or fun about that. So that absolutely sucked. It was horrible on me, it was horrible on Avery, it just was not fun. Sorry if you hear noises in the background. That's Ayla, because she's going through a leap right now and she cannot leave my side. She loses it the minute I stand up. She thinks I'm leaving her. So that's her right now. Anyways, so we did the time intercourse for a while and nothing happened. So I went back. I was like, okay, look, this isn't working. Nothing has happened. What are my next options? So they put me on medication along with the time intercourse to see if that would help. Oh my goodness. The medication was just to kind of try to get me to ovulate, I guess, drop more eggs and see if that would help. It didn't help. So then we started looking into other options. So I started telling him how painful intercourse was for me. And that's whenever he's like, you know what, that kind of sounds like endometriosis, but the only way that I can diagnose you is if I do a laparoscopy or no, that's not what we did first. First, we decided that we were gonna see if there was any blockage in my tubes. So we went in with a, please stop. Okay guys, sorry, Ayla's trying to drop my camera. But the first thing that we actually did was an HSG, which is actually, according to Google, it's a test that uses X-ray and special dye to detect scar tissue, fibroids, or any growths that may be blocking your tubes. So that was the first thing that we did. I actually went in, I remember I drove over there and they told me that I didn't need anybody to go with me. So I got there super early in the morning. They put me in the back and they actually did that test, and it was one of the most painful things that I've had done. It doesn't sound like it would be bad, but your uterus is cramping the entire time that they put the dye in you to see if your tubes are blocked. So it was super, super painful. I guess it's more uncomfortable than anything. And I remember, I'll never forget, this was the first time that I actually did this. It was actually mine and Andy's anniversary. So I'm driving over there. I get pulled over. By this time, I had already reached the point where I was very emotional. So I get pulled over and the DPS is like, you need to get out of your car. And I'm like, okay. So I get out of my car and I'm trying to like stand in the road. Not in the road, but like on the side of the road so that I'm not in the grass because I was wearing a dress. And I was like, okay, I don't want nothing to sting me or anything. And he's like yelling at me that I need to like stand in the grass because I'm going to get run over. And I was like, okay. So I started bawling because I was already emotional and hormonal by that point. I took it so hard. It was like, I felt like a failure. So to be honest with y'all, Andy has 2 girls, Alexi and another daughter. And he obviously did not get married to their mom. So I was like, okay, we're married. We did things right. We went and got married before God. So why is this happening? At that point, I was already questioning everything. So going up there was emotional. So anyways, I get pulled over. Long story short, I was a hot mess. So I was probably late to my appointment. I get there and they're doing this exam on me and I'm like, oh my gosh, like why am I having to go through this? This is so painful. This is uncomfortable, whatever. So the nurse and the doctor, they're both the sweetest people in the whole entire wide world. I highly recommend them. My doctor in Midland is Dr. Deshawn, and his nurse is the sweetest person in the whole entire wide world. So I'm telling them like this is painful, and they're both like, just, we're almost done, just push through it, we're just trying to see what's going on. It's like, okay. So they see that my tubes are blocked somewhat, so they put me on medication to try to get the tubes to unblock themselves, and we go another few months. Well, nothing happened. So they decided that they were going to do a laparoscopic surgery. Probably saying that wrong. But what they did is they did 3 small incisions that they went in with a little tube and a camera through my stomach, right by my belly button, just to see if they could unblock my tubes. So they did this in hopes that it would help. Well, it didn't help. They recommended and said, like, you know, after the surgery, usually, like, you can get pregnant right away if it helped. This is the only true diagnosis for endometriosis, and this is the only way that we'll be able to kind of block them if we can. So I was like, okay, let's get it done. We did it, didn't help. So by this time, they put me on that medication to try to unblock them. Didn't help. Like I said, every time I would go into the doctors, I was a hot mess. I would sit there and I would cry and I would question everything. And at this time, like, I was probably not the best person in the world to be around it because I was just a hot mess. I was emotional. I was literally depressed. The doctor was the sweetest person in the world. He would just listen to me cry and like assure me that everything was going to be okay and everything would be fine. So probably within a year of doing this, they're like, you know what, we think you need to start seeing a fertility doctor. I was like, okay, well, you know, what are my options? So there was a fertility doctor in Odessa that they recommended. Yeah, I don't like him. I'm not even gonna like put his name out here because I do not like him whatsoever. If you want to know who not to go to, PM me, DM me, whatever you want to do, and I can definitely steer you away from this guy. I know a lot of people used him and they successfully got pregnant, but I just did not like him. So the first time that we went in, Andy and I were actually, I think we were going to go to Vegas. So we're like, you know what, let's schedule this appointment. We'll go see him and then we'll go. So we went in there and he just kind of was very dismissive. He kind of like told me like, hey, you're young, like get over it, pretty much. Like, why are you in such a hurry? He didn't know what was in my heart or what I wanted. And so I was like, okay, well, whatever. We went back and we saw him and he did some tests on Andy just to see how his sperm count was. Andy's sperm count was fine. And he started putting me again to do the timed intercourse. He's like, let's do this and see how that goes. So they did that, and they put me on Clomid along with the timed intercourse. The Clomid was just supposed to, again, release more eggs or try to get me to be more fertile. So we did that for about 2 months. It didn't work. So then when we went back, he's like, okay, that didn't work. Let's do the timed intercourse with a Clomid with an HGC shot. I'm sorry, get my letters mixed up. The HGC shot was actually to release the egg at a certain time. So I would go in and they would test me to see if I was near ovulation. So I would go in, they test me, and then they would give me the shot whenever they felt that was appropriate time. So then they would be like, okay, go home and have intercourse. So romantic, let me tell you. That was horrible. That was like one of the most horrible things I've probably ever done, just because someone's telling you what to do, when to do it, and me and Andy were both just not really into it. So that was a big part of our marriage that was tested, because we were both just like not into the whole, hey, go home and, you know, have an intercourse kind of thing. So that was hard. We did that for about 3 months, and that didn't help. So then he started just telling me like, okay, we don't know what's going on with you. You just need to like give it some time. So we ended up just kind of keep going to him, giving it time. And then I decided that I had had enough. I couldn't emotionally take it anymore. Everything was hard on me. Everything was, my relationships were all just hanging by a string. Me and Andy were just barely getting along. Lexi and I were barely getting along. I was probably the worst person to be around, friends-wise, work-wise, with everybody. I was no fun. I was very depressed, and then I had people like that would just tell me like, get over it, or when the time is right, it's gonna happen. And yeah, you're right. When the time is right, it's going to happen. But when somebody is going through something like this, that's not what they want to hear. That to them is just you being critical and being not understanding. Or I also would have the people that didn't know what I was going through, because in the beginning I wasn't very open about it. I kept it to myself. Only my close friends knew about it. I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I couldn't get pregnant when all these other people were getting pregnant. All these other people that didn't want to take care of the kids had kids. I was very bitter. I was very angry. I was very resentful. So whenever people would like come and tell me like, you know, when are you gonna have kids? Oh my gosh, I've been married for like 3 years. Why have y'all not had kids? Like, I would just be like, oh, we don't want any, or oh, when it happens. I was very, very angry, and I literally wanted to tell them like, mind your business. But I was trying to be nice. Are you talking in the phone? I was trying to be as nice as I could and not go off on people, but I probably was coming off rude even when I wasn't trying to. So I had people doing that to me, and then I had like people that would literally talk and say that Andy had had a vasectomy and that, you know, he just didn't want to have kids with me. So that got back to me, and that was very, very hurtful. Like, to this day, I don't even like to see that person that said that, because like, you don't even know what's going on in somebody's life, and to sit there and discuss people's situations, like, that just was not okay with me. So what I'm trying to get with that is, I would just really recommend that if you see somebody that hasn't had kids, has been married for a long time, don't go and ask them when they're gonna have kids or why they haven't had kids or any of that, because you don't know their struggle. You don't know what they're going through, and you don't know how much that hurts them each and every time that somebody asks them that or gives them their unsolicited advice, because that is unsolicited advice. I know people mean it well, but when you're in the place that I was at, you're depressed, you're angry, you're everything that no one that has gone through it would understand. So if you have not dealt with infertility, you would not understand one bit of what it feels like. So that's just my advice, because I lived it, and I know that I was always wanting to yell at those people like, I can't get pregnant, okay? I don't know when I'm gonna have kids. I don't know if I'm gonna have kids. I don't know any of this. Will you leave me alone? That's literally what I wanted to say. And I think I probably did to a person or two whenever I just was not having a good day. I wasn't. It didn't help either that at that time I was selling life insurance. So going off subject, if you know anything about me and Andy, you know that we own a business, you know that we're where we're at now. But we didn't start off where we are now. And Andy and I went through a point where we actually lost a house. We had our house foreclosed on us. We went through some battles. We went through some very heavy, like when everybody was struggling with work, we were struggling through work. We had times that we didn't have anything to eat. We had times that I had to ask my parents for money so that we could pay a bill or two. It was hard. So at that point, I was working nonstop trying to help Andy maintain our household, maintain our bills, maintain our Alexi, because we had Alexi at that time. And it was hard because we were trying to sustain her, trying to give her what she needed and what she wanted. So I was working a lot at that time, and I am very fortunate that the company that I worked for was super understanding. I sold life insurance at that time, and I would go door to door, and as long as I met my quotas and as long as I did what I had to do, like I could make my own hours. So I was able to go to all my doctor's visits and not have to really ask for time off, because as long as I got my job done. The only downfall with my job was that I was alone a lot, because the life insurance I would sell, it was door to door, and I would go out of town a lot. I would sell life insurance in our surrounding towns. So I was in my car a lot by myself in my feelings. So that didn't help, because, you know, I would drive for like an hour and just be thinking like, I'm not enough. Where is God when I need him? I questioned God so much at that time. Like, are me and Andy not supposed to be together? Is this why I can't get pregnant? Why am I raising Alexi when all I want is my own children? I had all these questions, which sounds horrible, but it's just one of those things that just goes through your mind. And I mean, I would never take back raising Alexi. It's one of the best things I've done, but at that time, in that moment, I was so young. I was so depressed that I was just questioning everything, and I was bitter. I was a bitter person. So, you know, at that time I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not doing these treatments no more. I need some time off. I just need to worry about getting back to myself, becoming happy, becoming Alexi's mom, worrying about her, worrying about my marriage, and trying to get everything together. And you know what? I kind of just decided I'm not doing this no more. So I gave myself a break. I started immersing myself in church 100%. Church was my saving grace. I'm not even kidding, y'all. Alright guys, sorry. Ela decided to die on my brother. But like I was saying, at that time, church was my saving grace, like it should be. When you're going through something, I feel like that's 100% where you should be. When you're not going through stuff, you should still be going to church, but church saved me. My pastors, they were amazing, especially Valerie. She was like the sweetest person. I would call her just crying, and I would tell her everything I'd be going through that during that time, and you know, she'd just be so understanding, and you know, take me out to lunch or just listen to me or whatever it could be. Like, Valerie was honestly one of the best people in that time for me, because I didn't feel comfortable enough, as crazy as it sounds, sharing it with my best friends. Like, I felt like they all had kids, and I felt like, you know, a lot of them had kids while we were in high school. So I kind of felt like they were gonna judge me, not understand me, and be like, you know what, get over it. So I didn't feel comfortable enough sharing it with them. So I did share it with Avery a lot, and she was just, and she still is, she's like one of the most amazing people ever. But during that time especially, she was just so understanding, and she probably has no idea right now how much she meant to me then, and still does. I'll never ever forget anything that she did to me, for me at that time. But anyways, so I started immersing myself in church. I started going to church a lot more. I grew up Catholic, so whenever Andy and I got married, we tried staying in the Catholic church, and it wasn't for him, and honestly it really wasn't for me either. So we kind of started looking around, and that's when we found this church. And I had a really hard time in the beginning just accepting it. Like, Andy and I would go to church and we'd come home and we would have a huge blowout fight, and I'd be like, you know what, why are we going? Like, this is happening, this is that. But we pushed through it, and now it's like so much better. Like, I 100% believe that was just, you know, something that was trying to keep us from going to church. But when I was going through this, I started helping out more, volunteering, and just kind of like focusing on church and focusing on my relationship with God. And I'm not saying I didn't have hard times, because there was times I would be there in service and I would just be bawling, and people probably were looking like, what is going on with you? I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I'd be bawling uncontrollably because I'm just sitting there like giving my heart over to God and just like letting him work on me. So that was that. I remember that one of my nieces was born around that time that I was going through all this. And when her mom told me she was pregnant, we were very close at the time. I kind of was like, what? Like, y'all aren't even married. Y'all aren't even, what? It was probably things that I shouldn't be thinking, but I did. And I was like, okay, you know, cool. You're having a baby, cool. But I became very resentful, and like, I didn't even want to see her when she was pregnant. I'd be like, oh, yeah. Like, I'd make any excuse that I could to not see her, to not hang out with her. I even remember, like, telling her, like, look, it's not you, it's me. I just can't be around you right now. It's hard. I'm going to love your daughter, but for right now, I can't be around. Which, if you haven't been in my shoes, you probably think that sounds petty, and you're like, get over it. But I knew that I wasn't going to be a good person at that time for her, and I knew that I was going to probably make faces that I, you know, probably shouldn't. So I was just like, you know what, I can't. And my heart couldn't handle it. It just couldn't. So those are things that I was going through. Everybody around me was having kids, it felt like. Everybody. And people that would just be like, oh, I'm having such a hard time getting pregnant. It took me like 2 months. And I'm like, what? I'm like 4 years in. Okay, cool. So, I mean, it was a hard time. So I tried, like I told y'all, I went to the OBGYN. I went to an RE, which is the specialist. He's a fertility specialist. And then I kind of just gave up, and I started trying natural things that people would recommend, like, oh, this worked for so-and-so, so try this, or try that. And I was like, okay, you know, I'll try it. But I was still kind of like, it's not going to happen. And in the back of my mind, I was like, it's not going to happen. It's not meant for me. I'm not going to have kids. I kind of had given up. So around that time, we were probably already like 6 years into trying. And at that time, I felt, this was when my cousin Cynthia was pregnant with her oldest. It was actually that time. So I felt like, you know what, at ease, in peace. I was very in peace with where I had been in life. My whole outlook on the situation was completely different. So I had kind of evolved around it. And I decided that I was going to start seeing the specialist again. So I call and they're like, you know what, we have relocated. We're no longer in Odessa. And I was like, oh, great. So where y'all at now? And they're like, oh, we relocated to Fort Stockton. We go once a month or whatever it was. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is a sign of things. Sorry, let me get Avery. Okay, I'm sorry. Avery wanted to see if I was done. So anyways, they relocated to Fort Stockton, and I was like, okay, you know, this is perfect. This is God's time. Anytime that something is easy, it's gonna work. So I started seeing him again, and the first time that I saw him was actually Cynthia's baby shower. I went to her baby shower, and then from there I had an appointment. So I went and saw him, and you know, we discussed everything that had happened, what me and him had done, all the time taking the courses, all the IUIs. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I hadn't done an IUI until then. All the everything else. So then he's like, you know what, we need to do IUIs. So I was like, okay, let's do IUIs. Like, what is that? So he's like, it's just like insemination. Like we take his sperm and we inseminate it into you just to make sure that it gets closer to the egg. And I was like, oh, well, why hadn't we done this before? And it's like, well, I just didn't feel like you needed it. You were so young. I was like, okay. So we started doing that. That was the next step that we did. So we went and visited him in San Antonio because that was where his main office was at. He was just visiting people here in Fort Stockton and kind of like, you know, go from here, go there. So by this time I had joined a ton of like infertility groups on Facebook, and I met people, and I met this one girl. I remember she lived in Pecos. Her husband was working here or something, but she was telling me what she was doing. I was like, okay, support system, great, this is what I need. So me and her kind of were discussing everything that was going on and what he was doing for her and whatnot. So Andy and I went to San Antonio, we did the IUI, and we're like, okay, let's see if it works. We tried it, it didn't work. So then he's like, you know what, let's try it again one more time. It's bound to work. There's nothing wrong with you. Your endometriosis is not a big deal. Like, that should not keep you from getting pregnant. I was like, okay. The research that I've done says that endometriosis is a big factor in infertility, but you're a specialist. I'm not. Okay, whatever you say. So we went and did the IUI yet again, and yet again it failed. So I was like, okay. I was starting to degress again, starting to get upset again, starting to get better again. And I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I don't really like this doctor. Every time I ask him questions, he kind of just dismisses me. He kind of just, yeah, whatever. And I just kind of felt like he was just taking my money. And so I started talking to the girl that I had met. She was like, you know what? This is how I feel too. And I was like, well, that's weird. Okay, whatever. So me and Eddie talked, and we're like, you know what, like, this is not for us. Let's just stop. You're fine. Come here. You're fine. Come here. Come here. You're fine. Come on. Anyways, so I knew a couple of girls here in my town that had struggled with fertility and that were still kind of trying to figure out what was going on. So I reached out to them, and one of them recommended a doctor in Lubbock that she had seen, and she kind of, one second, sorry. You're fine. Sorry, Ayla thought she was trapped, but she wasn't. Anyway, so she recommended a doctor that she tried in Lubbock. So I was like, okay, well, let's see. So I kind of called, and I could never get an appointment in. So I was like, okay, well, whatever. So then I started talking to the other girl, and she recommended a doctor that she saw in Houston. She really liked her. She's like, you know what, she was great. She was able to get me to get pregnant. Unfortunately, she had a few miscarriages, but she's like, I was able to get pregnant, and you know, she might be good for you. So I was like, okay, you know, let's see what we do. So I contacted the Houston office and sent her over all my paperwork, and she's like, yeah, you know what, I really recommend that doctor in Lubbock. And I was like, well, I haven't been able to get in there. And she's like, well, I could see you. She's like, but I'm in Houston, and feel like it's gonna be a burden on you, having to come over here and with all the exams that we have to do and this and that. So I was like, okay. Kind of felt discouraged, but at that same time, my best friend Savannah knew someone that had, and I'm not sharing anybody's names because I don't know how comfortable they are. I know they're open in our community about it, but I don't know how comfortable they are with their story being out. But that's why I'm not sharing names. But anyways, my best friend Savannah knew someone who had seen this doctor in San Antonio. She's like, look, it worked for her. You might want to give it a try. I was like, you know what? I'm just kind of over it. So by this point, I had shared my story with my friends. And I had kind of shared it. I think I shared it just publicly, like, you know what? This is what's going on. I posted it on Facebook, posted my whole life and just like, this is what's going on in my life. And so I had people reach out to me. So I was like, you know what, just try her. And I was like, yeah, I'm done. I'm really done. I'm not meant to have kids. I'm done. She's like, just go and see her. Like, what will it hurt? And I was like, okay, fine. You got me. So I come home, I talk to Andy. I'm like, you know what, they recommended this doctor. I don't know what you think. He's like, you know what, he's like, I just feel like maybe we should just like stop trying because I can't take how you get, like all my depression and all that stuff. I was like, well, you know what, let's just try it one more time. And we kind of just talked about it and we decided to, yeah, let's give it one more shot and see how it goes. So we went, I set an appointment. I was skeptical to begin with because you have to send out all your medical history and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, I don't want to have to go through this all over again. I've sent my medical history to so many doctors and okay, let's do it. So I sent it over and we went in and I met with her. And her name is Dr. Balthazar. And at that time, the clinic was called RMA of Texas, I believe. Now it's Aspire Fertility. And I was like, okay. Went in there and the minute she walked into the room, her energy filled the room. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Like, she's bubbly, happy, energetic, and it's like looking at me and it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, we can get it all figured out. She's looking at my chart. She's like, you know what? You have to do IVF. She's like, there's no other way. There's no other way. She's like, your endometriosis is to a stage where IUIs are not going to get you pregnant. Timed intercourse is not going to get you pregnant. Intercourse in itself is not going to get you pregnant. So you need to do IVF. That's your only option. And I look at Andy and I'm like, oh my gosh, can we afford this? Like, do we want to do this? I've heard stories of people doing IVF and it not working for them. It's expensive. So we're like, okay, can we talk about it? She's like, yes. We're like, what about payments? Like, how does that work? Do you offer payment plans? She's like, we don't offer payment plans in-house, but you can do like a care credit kind of thing. We're like, okay, let's talk about it. So Andy and I went home and we discussed it and we had like a 3 or 4 hour drive home and we just talked about it and we're like, you know what, let's try it. So we applied and we got approved and we started doing the procedures that they needed us to do for IVF. So what they needed us to do was have some tests done. And she even told me beforehand, these tests, I'm sorry guys. So these tests, they need to be done weekly and whatnot. And I'm like, so I'm gonna have to come to San Antonio? She's like, no. She's like, I partnered with a I'm not sure what her title is, but she's not a doctor. I don't know if she's a nurse practitioner, but I partner with her. She lives in Odessa, and you would travel to her. And I'm like, okay, I could do that. So we start, setting everything up, looking at my calendar, looking at her calendar, and seeing like how we would work through this. So the nurse is the one that you contact. She contacts you primarily, and they set everything up and they get you all your medication and they set you up with the nurse practitioner or whatever her title is, and everything that you need to get done, they get it sorted out for you. So I started seeing Maria Co, which is the lady in Odessa, and she starts doing the sonograms, the blood work, all that stuff that they need. we send it off over there, and within like 2 months we start doing the treatment. I start having to give myself injections, which is not fun. I had to start doing injections on my stomach, and then I had to start doing injections on my butt, on my hip, I guess. I don't know what you would call it, but I had to start doing all that, and that was no fun at all because that's scary. So I had my best friend Vanessa start doing it for me, like giving me the injections, and then after that I was like, I can't be going over there however often. So I started doing it myself because Andy was just terrified. He wasn't about to do it. He's just real squeamish. So we did that, and then we go in to retrieve the eggs. And the process is they retrieve the eggs. After a few days, they call you and like, hey, this many eggs are viable. Okay, and then a few more days, like, this is how many eggs are viable. This is what we're gonna freeze. So we started out with like 23 eggs, and then we froze. By the time that we were done, we froze 6. So from 23 eggs, we only had about 6. So I was like, okay, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Because what happens? So they give you the option of testing the eggs genetically and also testing for gender. We decided not to do that because we couldn't afford it, to be honest. And secondly, we were just like, if we get a baby, we get a baby. Whatever it is, God sends us, whatever God sends us. So we didn't do that. And whenever we went back, like it was another month that we had to go back, I was still on shots. I was still doing progesterone shots at this time. We went back and we went ahead, and she's like, you know what? She actually wasn't able to do the transfer. Dr. Oh my goodness, I can't remember his name. Anyways, he had to do the transfer. So they give you a little dish, and you know, they ask you like, you know, we're good. And me and Andy talked about it, and we're like, we want to transfer 2. We want to transfer 2 in case one doesn't work. If they both work, we have twins. Like, we want to transfer 2. He like talked to us, and he's like, you know what? I don't recommend it. He's like, I don't see a reason why your body would not carry a baby full term. He's like, and I don't see a reason why your body will not take the 1 egg. Like, but it's like, look, it's your body, your call at the end of the day. But divorce rates are higher. You know, it's just harder on a woman's body carrying twins. And me and Andy just kind of discussed it. We're like, okay, let's do the 1. If it doesn't work, we've been through it, we'll come back. So we transferred it, and then, you know, you have to wait to see if it took. And it did. It took. The first time that we did IVF, we got Avery. So that was amazing. I had to go back one more time so that they can confirm the pregnancy and see everything that was fine. And I was like, okay, so what do we do now? So I was considered high risk because I was an IVF pregnancy, so I had to go to a high-risk doctor. So I wasn't able to see anybody locally, so I had to go to Odessa. So I decided I was going to deliver in Odessa in Midland, I'm sorry, since I was already going over there anyways. Might as well see my doctor there. So that's what we did. I had 0 complications. My pregnancy with Avery was like a breeze. I was doing things like I normally would. Had 0 issues whatsoever. So that was that. That was my pregnancy with Avery. We delivered full term. I actually got induced at exactly 40 weeks. So he was born when he was supposed to and all that stuff. No problems whatsoever. So then fast forward to Ayla. They did tell me, they're like, come here. Sometimes people with endometriosis do get pregnant after a pregnancy quite quickly. So you might not need to do IVF again. You might be able to get pregnant naturally. You want to put your shoe on? Okay. So we're like, oh, okay, like, that would be awesome. But in the back of my head, I was like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's just not going to happen. I don't know. My heart just knew it wasn't going to. So by the time Avery was 2.5, I think, we were like, you know what? Maybe we should start looking again or talking about it. I still had 5 eggs frozen. I was just paying my yearly little fee to keep them in their little daycare. And so we went back and, you know, we saw Dr. Balthasar, and she was like, your pregnancy was amazing. She's like, we're gonna do this again, and you know, same plan as before. We're not gonna have to do as much injections because we're not gonna be retrieving eggs this time. All we're gonna be doing is getting your body ready to house the baby. And I was like, okay. So I send me my medication. I start seeing Maria Cole again. She starts doing the sonograms that she needs to get done so that I can, you know, go and transfer another embryo. So we're like, okay, we do it, and we go, and Dr. Balthasar does the transfer this time, and she's like, well, we'll find out if it worked or not. And I was like, okay, whatever, you know. It was a lot more easygoing. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. So we go and we take a pregnancy test, and it came out that I was pregnant again. So then there's Ayla, and I'll never forget Dr. Balthasar. She's like, you're the most fertile, unfertile person ever, because your body just took these babies and had no issues whatsoever. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, I have issues. She's like, yeah, but usually people with IVF sometimes struggle, so you didn't. I'm like, well, I attribute all that to God 100%, because I don't feel like if I had gotten my life where it was spiritually at that time, I don't feel like I could emotionally and physically prepare my body to carry these children. So I may have not been able to. But that is my story. That is my journey, and I had a handful of people that were very instrumental in getting me to where I am and where I was with my children. I thank Andy and Lexi every single day for putting up with my moods, because gosh, I was moody forever. So I'm very, very, very blessed and very fortunate to have had them. Yes, babe? So that is where that is. But I did have y'all ask me questions on Instagram to see what I could answer for y'all. So hold on, baby. Let me see. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. Filming with kids is just so hard, but it is what it is today. So my first question was, start to finish, how long was your journey? So start to finish, I struggled with this for 8 years. It was the roughest 8 years of my life. So I feel for anybody that's struggling for a day. If you're struggling, my heart goes out to you. And if you ever need anyone to talk to, send me a DM. I'm 100% open. This is near and dear to my heart. So yes, my struggle was for 8 years. Best doctor and what to expect. So the best doctor, hands down, would be Dr. Balthasar. I know other people that have seen her and have had successful journeys when they haven't had successful journeys with other doctors. So I really feel that she is just great at what she does, and she's such a kind soul. Anybody that sees her would love her. She is located in San Antonio at the Aspire Fertility Clinic, and I'll link her information over on my website so that y'all can contact her if you need her. And what to expect. What to expect, I would say, when you're trying to figure out what's going on, it's going to be a while until a doctor officially tells you you need to see a fertility doctor. But I also would say, if you in your heart feel like you've done everything that you physically can and emotionally can without seeing a fertility doctor, it's time to go see a fertility doctor. They are the only ones that specialize in something like this and that can give you guidance. So once you start seeing a fertility doctor, ask as many questions as you can. Whatever your situation is, if it's endometriosis, PCOS, or male factor infertility, or even if it's you don't know what's going on, be prepared. Have a list of questions. I know I would go in there with my phone and I would have questions galore on my notes. And Dr. Balthasar, especially, and Dr. Deshawn, they would answer all my questions and be like, what else? Is that all? I'm like, yes, that's all, you know. So, 100%. Just be prepared. Ask as many questions as possible. And if your doctor is not answering your questions or making you feel important, don't be like me. Don't waste years with a doctor that you in your heart feel is not the right doctor for you. You're going to know when that doctor cares for you and has its best interest for you. So definitely. IUIs or straight to IVF. Cost, experience with doctors, anything you want to share. I did do IUIs. I did 2 IUIs. Those are not very costly. I think at that time I paid like $350. Insurance does not cover any of this. It didn't for me, at least. Your insurance might, mine did not. So I had to pay for that. Obviously, you want to go with the most inexpensive treatment to start with if you're barely starting out. But if you're already in the process for a long time, go to a specialist and tell them how long you've been in this journey. Be 100% honest with them. Because if you just go in there like, oh, hey, I'm new to this, and you've really been trying for like 3 or 4 years, they might start you somewhere that they wouldn't start you if you've been on this journey for a long time. So be 100% honest with them. If I went back again through everything, I would go straight to IVF, obviously, because that's what worked for me. But I didn't know that. I also didn't want to do a straight IVF because we did discuss it at one point because of the cost. I just didn't feel like I could afford it. Is it worth every penny, the IVF? Yes. I got my 2 beautiful children out of it. And even though Ayla's wild as can be right now, send me all your positive energy on that girl. But anyways, I don't regret a penny of it. Not one. Experience with my doctors, like I said before, my OBGYN was amazing. I still see him to this day. And they are, the only reason that he didn't deliver Avery or Ayla is because he doesn't deliver babies no more. He kind of retired from that area. So, yeah, he's just doing straight gynecology, I guess. I don't know. But 100%. Dr. Deshawn, Midlands Women's Clinic, amazing guy. Dr. Balthasar, I cannot praise her enough. She is the bubbliest, most happiest person ever. Good energy, good vibes. That's what you need to surround yourself with, good vibes. And somebody that's going to cheer for you when you can't cheer for yourself. Because when you're in your darkest days, you need a doctor that's going to be cheering for you and telling you, we're going to get you through this. And that's what Dr. Balthasar did for me. Anything I want to share? Honestly, if you're struggling with infertility, don't be scared to reach out to other people that you know that have gone through it and see if they're willing to share their story with you. Some people might not. It's not for everybody, and some people, it's hard for them to talk about it because either they haven't been successful, it took them a long time to be successful, or they went through a lot of losses to get to where they are. So don't be offended. Ayla, get off of there, please. Get off. But do reach out to people. If you have a relationship with God, lean on Him. 100%. Hold on, I think somebody's coming in. No. Sorry, I'm doing this at work because I have my cleaning lady at home today, and I just figured I'd come in here, so it's kind of hectic. But anyways, okay, next question. Everything: meds, retrieval, viable embryos, implantation, rounds, family support, emotion. So this is a loaded question, but meds are expensive. I will have some photos linked over on either my Instagram or on my website with how much meds I had to take. Retrieval, to me it was a breeze. I mean, they put you under, it is considered a surgery because you do go under anesthesia, and honestly I didn't feel anything afterwards. So that was a breeze for me. I mean, I slept, and when I woke up they're like, hey, we got this many eggs, we're going to turn them into embryos. So that was easy for me. Viable embryos, be prepared to lose embryos. you start out with a large number, and every day the ones that are not either genetically good or whatever the reason may be don't make it. But at the end, they get you a good number. Some people might end up with way less. I'm sorry if I keep looking over there. Ayla's just climbing over everything. But they get you a good number, and you know, they save the viable ones for you. Implantation. So during that time that they do the transfer to the implantation to figuring out if you are pregnant, I would just take it like a normal day. It's hard to not sit here and be like, okay, did it work? Trying to take pregnancy tests, but don't do it, because you might get a false positive or a false negative. So your body has the progesterone.
Mom, I want a snack.
Okay, can you give me a second, please? Yes. So your body has the progesterone that they have you inject, so that can give you a false positive. So you don't want to get your hopes up. So do not take pregnancy tests until you go see your doctor. That's 100%. Family support. I've always been that person that it's been so hard for me to like open up. Like, me and my mom have a good relationship, but there's like just some things like I just can't talk about with her. I don't know why. I don't know. My mom's family's not very lovey-dovey or huggy or telling you that they love you. I know that they love me, but that's just not how we grew up. But I did tell her eventually what was going on, and my dad, and you know, they were there for me. They were probably the happiest whenever we had our kids. But if you feel comfortable enough to open up to your family, open up to them and be sincere with them and tell them exactly what's going on. And if you feel like they are bombarding you with questions of like, hey, when are you gonna have a kid? I think it's okay for you to be like, you know what, I'm struggling. I haven't been able to. That would help you kind of not feel pressured into having to put a fake smile on. So I do think you should be honest with your family so that they could be supportive of you, and that they could maybe not, or maybe they could avoid questions that are going to hurt you, because I know that those questions do hurt. And I think that was the last question. If there's any other questions that y'all have, anything that y'all want to know, send me a message. I am going to link my doctor's information down below. I am going to link it in my website. It's probably going to be in my website. So make sure to be checking that out. I hope y'all like this video. I know that it's not an easy subject to talk about. It's one of the hardest things for a woman to talk about. But I've learned through my journey that it's more common than not. There is women out there that don't have a support system, and my advice to everybody is uplift each other. Try to be kind with your words, and don't be questioning people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what their journey is. And if somebody does open up to you, try and be supportive. I know it's hard nowadays because everybody's going through stuff, but infertility is such a hard and heavy thing to carry around. It's not fun whatsoever. So definitely be supportive of one another, uplift each other. And I think that's it. So until next time, guys, please make sure to subscribe and hit your bell notification so you're notified every time I post something new. And if there's any other questions, please make sure to send me a message. Let me show you my two beautiful kids real quick. Two right here are my little IVF babies. This one's a little wild, but I'm so thankful that Jesus gave me them with the help of Dr. Balthasar. Ayla. 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 Nope. Ayla. Hey, we're talking to you. Hey. Yeah. Ayla. Brio. Hey. What are you doing?
Is that where it goes?
Yeah. Alright, guys. So those are my two little IVF babies. And honestly, they're the best thing that have happened to me in my whole entire life. So that is my story. I'm gonna link down below my video of whenever I announced Avery. Whenever I told Lexi, that was such an emotional time. Lexi's always wanted a sibling. So it was the cutest thing ever. So make sure to check it out.